Hello guys, how you doing? So following our CSS course that we're currently running, I'm going to be talking about CSS positioning, and at the end of this short course, you should be able to understand everything you need to know as regards CSS positioning, and you should also understand the different types of CSS positioning, and you should also know where you need to apply each CSS positioning types that we have. So I've gone ahead to set up a little HTML and CSS project. If you don't know how to do this, you can check back at the previous videos you have. I made a very intuitive and elaborative explanation on how to install the code editor we're using. We use Visual Studio Code. So I made an elaborative talk as regards how to download Visual Studio Code and also to download the web browser. So I've gone ahead to create a project called Code Chef, and I've created two files. One which is the index.html file. Let me increase the fonts of this a bit so you can see. And the other is my CSS file. And I've gone ahead to write a little HTML code here, which obviously by now it is something I want to believe that you understand. And if you don't, I'm going to reference a link to my HTML course. You want to give that a watch. So this is my HTML file. I have my HTML file and I have my CSS file. I'm currently using Live Server to render my HTML file, so I don't have to refresh each time I make a change. So I have a div here, and I have four other child divs, which serves as boxes for me. And this is our h1 tag, which is the parents, and each of the box makes up one child. So this is child 1, child 2, child 3, and child 4. Let's dive right in straight to our CSS. So when it comes to CSS positioning, this simply means, as the name implies, position, how elements on your web page are positioned. And in CSS, we have 5 different types of positioning. And I'm going to be writing this down because at the end of the day, I'm going to be giving you this code base so you can have access to positioning. Let me increase this font a bit so you can see positioning type. So we have 4 different types of positioning in CSS. Number 1, we have what we call static positioning. Static position. So by default, every element on your web page has the position to be static. By default, every element on your web page has their position to be static. And what static position basically means is that every element is maintaining their flow on the web page, their document flow. So no one is stamping on each other. Every element rather is maintaining their position on your web page. So if you go check your if you go to your what's it called now? If you check your console, your browser console, and you go to elements and you click on computed, you can do a search here to check this particular parent div. Let's check it out. You can check the position that is given to it. So yeah, you'll find out that it is static. So by default, every element on your web page carries static positioning, because static positioning helps to render each of these elements in their default mode. So they stay in their default mode. That is maintaining their space on your web page. So basically, that's what static positioning means. And the next positioning that looks like so is the relative position. called relative position. And if you actually go ahead to give any of your box, so let's say for example you want to give this particular box a position type of static, you'll notice that nothing changes here. Nothing changes because by default it is the normal way the box should be rendered. By default your box is rendered as a static position element, so it doesn't change anything. So the next one we're going to be considering is your relative position. So your relative position basically is similar to your static position. The only difference between the relative position and your static position is that your relative position further allows you to manipulate the top value, the left value, the bottom value, and the right value of your elements. So that means you have 4 different types of values that you can assign to any element that has its position to be relative. So let's have an example here. So let's say I set this particular box to be positioned as relative. Yeah, so you can see here that nothing changes. Nothing changes with the box. It still maintain its position on the document flow. Yeah, nothing changes. So it's basically similar to static position, but it can allow me to set the top property, the left property, the bottom property, and the right property. So if I do left of 30 pixels and I save, you can see immediately it shifts the position of the element. So it shifts the position of the element from its normal position, and it shifts it to the left by 30 pixels. So that's what relative positioning helps you to achieve. It's while it maintains the original position of your element, it gives you the ability to be able to manipulate the top, left, bottom, right of any element on your web page. So we can go further to manipulate the top element and give this 50 pixels. And now you can see that so from here to here is 50 pixels, and from here to here is 30 pixels. Yeah, so and you can see the way it overlaps the other elements, because what relative position also does is it ejects the element from its normal web flow. It ejects the elements from the normal document flow. That's what it does. So that's basically that's about relative position. So the third type of positioning we have is what we call your absolute position. Now, absolute position is quite different, and it's quite useful as well. So what your absolute position does is your absolute position basically takes your elements out of the document flow completely. Completely. It ejects the elements out of your document workflow. So to understand that grammar, let's let this guy stay back in their default mode, and let's give our box 3 a position called absolute, and let's see what it does. Now you can see our box 3 immediately. Our box 3 left its own position, and it stays on this particular position. You would notice that all of the other boxes did not move. The only box that moved was child 3. That's the box 3. And the reason why it moved was that it's completely left its position. It completely left its position, and that's why it moved. Yeah, it completely left its position on the document web flow. That's why it moved. So you notice that if we do this, you can see here, and now when we on comments, you can see. So it's not even aware that it is staying on another box, because it has been ejected from the normal document flow. So that's why you can actually move it anywhere, you can dock it anywhere. So I can give this a top of say 50 pixels. You can move it anywhere, anywhere at all. I can actually give it a top of 0 pixels. Can you see? And it stays at the top. I can give it a right of 0 pixels and it stays at the right. Now, the reason why it's able to do this is because it's not even taking into cognizance that it has a parent also. It's all by itself. A reason being that when you give an element a position of absolute, what that does is the position takes that element out of the normal document flow. So the elements can just move around and play around like nothing else is on the browser, and that's why that is. Now you will notice that when we did top of 0 pixels, you will notice that the elements went directly to the document top. Now the reason why it's supposed to it went directly to the document top. Now it's supposed to actually dock on its parent. The reason why it's not docked on its parent is because the parent does not carry a position of relative. Now, for this element to be able to dock on its parent such that when you give it a top of 0, it stays on its parent, not on the document webflow, you need to give this parent a type of position also. So if we go straight up and give the parent a position of, say, let's say relative, it can be static, it can be position of relative or absolute. Now if you do that, the change you're going to see is this guy would now dock on the top of its parent, not on the top of the document. Yeah, so let's save this and see. Now can you see now? So it's now at the corner of the parent, not on the document. Now you probably are not seeing that well. So what I'll do is to move the document down further so that you can see what I'm talking about. Sorry guys. So when we did not have position of relative here and we save, you can see this element. And the reason why it's staying here is because we gave it a position of absolute and we gave it a top of 0 and right of 0 pixel. Now, if we want to dock it on its parent, we need to give the parent some kind of position also. And when we do position relative, it docks directly. So that's the way position absolute works. But what position absolute does, again, to recap, is that it totally ejects an element from the document flow. So the element is able to go all around like nothing exists. Now, the fourth type of position we have is what we call fixed position. Now, what fixed position does is it totally ignores the scrolling of your web browser. So your fixed position docks an element to a particular point such that it doesn't move to and fro. Yeah. Normally, when you okay, let me add more contents here. So we are able to scroll our on our web page. Let me give this a height of 700 pixels. Okay, so we are able to scroll. Now, when you give any element a position, a fixed position, what it does is it ignores this scrolling. It is static. It doesn't scroll the web page. So let's give our box 4 a position, a fixed position. Now this is our box 4. Now when you scroll, can you see that? Now can you see that all other elements are scrolling, but box 4 isn't scrolling? That's what fixed position does. It fixes the elements on a particular part of the web page such that it totally ignores the scrolling property of the web page. Now you can go further by docking, by putting these elements on the top of your web page. So you can see, and this concept is the concept you will see in many websites whereby their navigation bar does not scroll. It's not affected by the scroll property. It just stays static, like it's hanging on the top of the browser. So all of this positioning are actually for you to use them to achieve one thing or the other. Yeah, but it is important for you to know how they work. I've said it as as much as I can emphasize on it. It is necessary for you to know how this little thing works, so that when it is time for you to apply it, it becomes very super easy for you to apply. So there's this last type of positioning that is really not so much in use, but it is important for you to know in case you have a use case for that. It's called sticky position. Sticky position. Now, so what sticky position does is sticky position combines both your fixed position and your absolute position. That's what it does. So if you give an element, let's give child 2. Where's our child 2? A position called sticky. So as the term implies, when we scroll down to where this particular element is, it sticks to our web page and it ignores the scrolling property of our web browser. I know that's a little bit bogus, but just hold on a bit. Let's increase the height of our web page. Now watch this. Let's give it a top property of, let's say, 30 pixels. Now can you see that? So you can see that immediately it gets to 30 pixel of our web page, it's totally stopped scrolling. Yeah, so you can go further to set it as 0 pixel actually, so you can see it properly. And I'm going to remove child 4 from that position so you can properly see child 2 sticking to the top of the web page. Now watch it. You just see that? So you see that it left its own position and it's got stuck on the top of the web page. That's what sticky does. So what sticky does is to combine fixed position and absolute position. Fixed position in the sense that once it gets to that particular part of its web page, it is able to eject the elements out of its normal document flow. And fixed position in sense that it totally ignores the scrolling principle of your web browser. And yeah, here are the and here is it, guys. This is the major position print properties that you would need to apply to creating your web pages. I hope you find this useful, and I hope you'll be able to apply this to creating and positioning elements in the right manner. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one, guys.